Good afternoon, everyone. Andy Jacob here with the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. What an amazing show today. You know, so many people reach out to me at the DotCom Magazine and they say, listen, we know that business oftentimes it's so important to have a great story. You know, whether the story is a technology company or a marketing company or a cybersecurity company or anything that has to do in business, if you don't have a great story about your business, you're really going nowhere. So I've been able to book on the show today the woman that I really call the queen of storytelling. Her name is Gail Mercer-MacKay, and she is the CEO and founder of MercerMacKay Digital Storytelling, and she is really remarkable. She's been telling amazing technology stories for technology companies since 2008. And I tell you, she's done such a remarkable job. She's an award winner herself. She helps so many companies actually get involved with the Microsoft Partner of the Year Awards. She helps companies showcase and stand out their technology platform. It's really remarkable to have her on the show. I have so many questions. I need to get right to it. Gail, welcome to the show.
Andy, thank you so much for having me. Wow, what an intro. I thought, who is that person? I want to meet them. But that was
I love it. You know, so many people reach out and they say, hey, you're nothing unless you have a great story. Let's pull the lens back to 30,000 feet and tell us about the MercerMacKay digital storytelling business to start with.
Oh, thank you so much, Andy. Yes, we're excited by our company. We are a professional services organization in marketing, and we help technology companies go to market with telling great stories and running great campaigns to drive leads and ROI in their marketing efforts.
I love it, Gail. And obviously, the technology business is a very, very competitive field. You've really been able to build your business, Gail, by really helping your clients stand out. And it's so remarkable that you've been able to do that. When someone reaches out to you, and of course you have a new offering that we're going to get into that's very exciting, and we'll get into that in a minute. But when people reach out to you, Gail, what does the conversation sound like between the technology companies reaching out to you who want to use your service?
Usually it's they need more help with marketing. And it's the last place that they're really able to invest well in. You know, they'll invest in great programmers and developers to develop the technology. They'll invest in a great sales force or partner channel to sell the technology. But marketing often, you know, the investment in terms of time and money, they just don't have it. And many of our partners, many of our clients, they will bring in young people right out of school to do the marketing for them. And so a lot of them are just not quite sure what to do. And let's face it, it's busy online. I mean, everything is digital these days. How do you get above the noise? And how do you compete with somebody that's got a multi-million-dollar budget, marketing budget, if you don't have that multi-million-dollar budget? So what can you do to attract the people that really you need to attract who are going to buy your solution?
That's great. That's great advice. And that makes all the sense in the world, Gail. You know, we want to get into this new offering that you have called Dexy, and we'll get into that in just a minute because that's super exciting. And if you really want to learn something about storytelling and help your company, stay tuned when we talk about Dexy because it's absolutely awesome. But you talk about 5 things that a company needs to win. You know, they need to have a great customer story. And if it's for the Microsoft Awards, then obviously built on the Microsoft technology. They need to have a tangible ROI, a unique differentiator. You need to have empirical evidence, like third parties validating what you're saying. And then, you know, you have to have, sometimes you need to look at the way in which the company maybe down the road might be taken out, if you will. So let's talk about that just a little bit. What's the third party validation? Why is that so important in putting together a great story?
Well, really, people want to know that other people have used your service. A lot of times people want to buy something that, and they're not quite sure if your marketing is really telling the truth. So they want that third-party validation. I call it borrowing authority. You're borrowing authority from either a big brand name or you're borrowing authority from a customer when you get those testimonials. And often it's testimonials, it's awards, it's winning awards. It's building on the right platform. So if you're an AWS or a Google Cloud or a Microsoft partner, you're borrowing their authority by building on their platform. So those are all important components of helping you tell your story well.
I love it, Gail. It makes all the sense in the world. It's really important. And something that you're very big on is you want to enable tech companies to tell a great story. And what you've been able to put together with your team is this new offering called Dexy. So let's pull the lens back on Dexy a little bit, because when we heard about Dexy, it sounded very exciting.
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, we are so excited about Dexy. It's marketing as a service, we're calling it, and it is a combination of software and access to experts. So it's a community, but it's also a self-service tool. And what we've learned with a lot of the tech companies that we work with is they're smaller. They're smaller tech companies, and they don't have huge budgets, but they've got amazing solutions. And so they're trying to figure out how can they get to market as quickly as possible using really, really great assets to get them to market, or even to talk to some people that might help steer them in the right direction. Is our Google campaign, are we doing it the right way? Is our LinkedIn campaign, what can we do to make it more effective? So that's really what Dexy is. It's every template that we've ever used over the years. And we use the hero's journey, which is, a very popular creative writing tool and framework for telling stories. We use the hero's journey in everything we do. And so it's how do we use and create these assets so that we can connect with our audience. And that audience could be people that are going to buy their solution. The audience could be partners that are going to sell their solution. So there's different audience types that they need to connect with. And that's what Dexy does. It has all these wonderful templates that they can use and step-by-step instruction on how to complete them and make them jump and pop. And then we have wizards, which are walkthroughs and walk through a process on how you do something. And then we have video instructions. So if you're not sure from the template, you can watch the video. We keep them super short. And then we have live access to experts. So if you run an email campaign and you don't get the results that you wanted, what do you do? Well, you can come online and you can talk to an expert, and we can look at your email campaign and give you some suggestions and help you fine tune it. So we are really designed, Dexy is really designed for the small to medium technology company that really wants to have sort of a CMO in their back pocket.
I love it. The CMO in the back pocket makes all the sense in the world. The CMO's name is Dexy, and it's very interesting because obviously your customers are creating and delivering technology solutions that not only contribute to, but help shape the world that we live in. Even the small to medium-sized companies are doing that, and they might not even know that they're doing it yet, but with the help of Dexy and telling the great story to get the word out, then ultimately they'll become one of those great companies, which is obviously the goal for all companies. So when we think about Dexy, how did that develop? How did you sort of think about the fact that you wanted to put this marketing as a service system called Dexy together? Because that's an interesting evolution for your company, Gail.
Well, that's a great question, Andy. Thanks. There was probably a couple of different routes that sparked the idea for Dexy for us. One was, I would get partners call us up, technology companies call us up and say, hey, I just hired a great marketing person, but they don't know anything about the tech industry. And can you spend an hour with them and do a bit of a brain dump? Or they call up and say, do you have a great template for an ebook or a great template for a case study, something that will help me write something or create something better? So people were always calling us to see if we could help them. And then in parallel, and this is really true more for Microsoft, but Microsoft hired us quite frequently to teach their partners how to market. So we would go and we would run these programs, and anything from a half-day workshop to a 10-chapter session on how to market, how to create assets. And we got really great feedback from people. And I started to think, what if we could take this and turn this into an actual service, software as a service, which is not completely no touch, but low touch. So it's affordable for these smaller to mid-sized companies. It's affordable to get access to us because it's expensive hiring an agency full-time to do all your marketing for you. After a while, it becomes expensive. So how can we get all our knowledge and make that readily available to the technology companies who need it to get to market. And that's where it started. That's how
I
it started.
love it, Gail. And obviously you've done such a remarkable job. People are loving it. You know, one thing that we found very interesting about your entrepreneurial journey, Gail, is that you speak annually at the Microsoft Inspire Conference. It's the global partner conference, as many people know, and you've been consistently ranked as a top 10 speaker for the past number of years. So you really are on what's happening, and you really are on sort of target with what your offering is. So when we think about Dexy just a little bit more, what was the aha moment? You know, was there something at one of the conferences, or were there a number of phone calls, or did you collaborate with your team? How did you come up with this great idea for Dexy?
Well, for me, the aha moment was there was a contest in Canada for women entrepreneurs to submit to get some funding to develop a solution or a product. It was all part of, enabling women CEOs and founders to have more access to capital and to grow their companies. And so I applied for it along with 10,000 other women owners, and I didn't get it. But the seed had been planted. The seed had been planted. And so we began to define the requirements and look at, is there something that we could do here? And in parallel, Microsoft was releasing Dynamics, their latest version of application software. And once we got our requirements defined, and then we took a look at Dynamics, Microsoft Dynamics, we realized that now the technology existed that would allow us to get our idea into market much, much faster than traditional development. I think if we'd started from scratch, we would have had about a year of development to get Dexy ready. But because we built it on the Microsoft Dynamics Foundation, it took about 8 weeks to get our first minimum viable product into market, which was the Microsoft Awards module. So we were, I think it's a few things that converge, but certainly now it's easier than ever for people, for businesses to get their ideas into, envelop them in software and launch them as a software product.
I love it, Gail. And obviously, you've done such a remarkable job. The MVP in 8 weeks under the Microsoft, sort of umbrella is really incredible. Let's talk about that MVP for a minute. Do technology companies oftentimes reach out to you that maybe need even help with the MVP, or are most of the companies that reach out to you through the MVP and now they just want to sort of spread the word and have a great story about it?
Everybody that we work with, it's really about connecting with the right audience. So yes, we work with clients at that MVP stage, often called incubate stage. We're at this beginning stage and we're not quite in market yet, but we're going to try it out with some customers. We need you to create assets to help us attract them. So they'll come in and try out the software. And then we move right through from, incubate all the way up to a lot of people call it graduate. And then you get to scale when you're scaling out. So, for all of those elements, there are assets and there are marketing tools and what marketing calls bills of material to create to reach the right audience.
I love it, Gail. It's so interesting. So let's turn our conversation to entrepreneurship just for a minute, because you're a great entrepreneur. For people that don't know Gail, simply Google her. You'll see all the awards that she's won over the past number of years. I mean, it's everywhere. She wins different types of awards for women in business, technological leaders, et cetera. It's too numerous to even talk about on the show right now. But when we think about entrepreneurship, do you ever get a startup type company, a company that's sort of getting into their MVP program, where you talk to them and then you say to yourself, maybe they need a little help. Maybe they don't quite understand what they're about to be faced with, and maybe offer also some consultation. And the reason I ask this is because I know you're a great mentor. You believe in mentorship so much, Gail. Do you also offer some mentorship as part of sort of the offering with your company? Well,
for sure, we bring mentorship and we bring all our best learnings to every client and every project we're working on. But mentoring for me has always been a passion. I believe it is my responsibility to help create the next generation of leaders. That's part of my responsibility. So as a result, we have a really strong intern program at MercerMacKay. We bring interns in every year and we work with them and give them lots of experience and lots of opportunity to learn. So that's hugely important. I also work in the community with varying startups and smaller business owners to give them, again, do some mentoring and give them guidance and advice. And it's really interesting. 2 days ago, I was asked to speak to a young man. It's two young people who are just out of college, and they've built an amazing education application, and they've got their flagship, their anchor client. And they're saying, we don't know what to do now. We've got this. We don't know how to take this to market. So hopefully I've given them some initial advice, and we're going to have a few more meetings. So hopefully I can help them, guide them into making the right decisions and doing the right things to get those customers. Because really, if you're an entrepreneur, particularly in the tech sector, that's my specialty. If you're an entrepreneur in the tech sector, you can have the best idea in the world and create the best software. But if you don't have customers, you can't get the attention of the angel investors. You can't get, the banks to invest in you. You can't get the capital that you need to grow. And so you really have to have that balance of, let's build something cool, but let's build enough that we can get 1 or 2 or 3 paying customers in, and build on the brand of those customers, leverage their testimonials and their experience to then go and find other customers. And then you start to, you build your momentum then. You start to build your momentum.
That makes all the sense in the world, Gail. So that actually is a perfect segue into my question that I've been sort of holding for you for a number of weeks while I got you on the show. So oftentimes we talk to entrepreneurs, to people in technology, and when you talk to them, all they can talk about is the technology. They're so excited about the technology. It's all about the tech. It's all about the programming. It's technology, technology, technology. But it seems sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes they forget about the most important thing, which is the customer. So let's discuss that a little bit and talk about sort of that bridge between technologists and how important it is actually to have paying customers.
Well, I love that question. Technology, it's about the transformation. It's about the story of transformation. And you're right, you get building something and you want to dive into your features and your benefits and all the things that it can do, but it's about the transformation. And that's why we love the hero's journey, because we talk about, I'm going to use the example of Frodo. What got Frodo to leave the Shire? Frodo was comfortable in the Shire. What got him to leave the Shire? And, nobody gets up in the morning and says, I want to write a check to a tech company today and buy some technology. They get up in the morning and they go, I'm uncomfortable. I need to leave the Shire. I'm uncomfortable enough that I'm going to leave the Shire. And in Frodo's place, it was that enticement of a big adventure. He had a life, but he was kind of bored. And it was the enticement of a big adventure that got him going. And then, of course, he had challenges along the way and met his mentor Gandalf, who helped him. And Gandalf is the equivalent of the technology company, and Frodo is the equivalent of the customer. But that's really what it's about. It's about that story of transformation. How are you as a tech entrepreneur going to help somebody make the transformation that they need to make to have a better life, whether it's a work life or a personal life? That's what you're looking for.
I love it so much, Gail. And for those people that don't know, Gail was also a Woman in Technology Mentor of the Year award winner. Let's talk a little bit, Gail, about what it looks like for a technology company startup. Okay, so in today's world, could you address how important it is for those startup companies building their MVP to have a great team?
Well, you need to, the first thing for me when I was, and I'll only use my own example, the first thing I needed was to not worry about money, because if I was worrying about money, I couldn't focus on growing my company. And so in my first year of building the company, I took a bunch of my savings and I locked it away. And I said, if I don't make a nickel this year in business, I will be able to at least live on this savings. And at the end of 12 months, if I haven't, gotten to this a certain whatever point it was that I had defined for myself, I'll pack it all up and say it's not going to work. And it will have been a very expensive, but hopefully fruitful education. It will have been an expensive education. And so the two things that I knew is that I needed great ideas and I needed customers. So I had to have that trade-off. And the first thing I always go for are customers. And the way I start, and I've done this multiple times, I did it with my own company, but I've done it in startups before I started my own company, is I trade my technology or my solution or my service for a customer reference. So I start with what I call a friend of Gail. So you start with somebody that you know and say, you need this, and I can give you this, but in return, you're going to give me a case study, a testimonial, and and some social promotion, whatever it is that you want to do. And you actually write it up like a little one-page contract and have people sign it. Because if you give it to them for free without getting people to sign the little contract, it's not worth anything in the mind of the person. So you spell out what they're going to do and you spell out the value and the cost of what you're going to do. So I've started every company that way, so that by the time you hit 6 months in business, you should have at least one or two customers, even if they're not paying in dollars, they're paying in testimonials. And then if now you are able to take that and go from that and start to get paying customers. So that to me was always super important in the beginning. The other thing I did in the beginning was I did not get a physical office. I didn't hire a team. I used contractors. I used part-time contractors to help. So I've been self-funded through this company. We've been self-funded. And for me, that's really important. I didn't want to start out with a lot of debt. I wanted to be self-funded and do things that were controllable for me before I needed to get into the bigger, maybe riskier steps of getting financing or hiring more people or expanding my operations.
I love it, Gail. It makes all the sense in the world. And for those entrepreneurs watching the show, maybe start in a startup phase or putting their MVP model together, Harvard Business School is a great school. And when you go to Harvard Business School, there's going to be teachers and there's going to be students, and they teach you things inside the classroom with regard to case studies. But there's nothing like actually having your feet on the ground, learning things on your own as an entrepreneur versus learning them in a classroom. So if you're a younger entrepreneur or an older entrepreneur, but have a startup or building an MVP model, rewind the show and listen to what Gail just said, because there is some definite Harvard MBA lessons right there, what she just said about really the power of what we call social proof. And it's really amazing, Gail, that you brought that up. Really interesting work that you're doing. The Dexy platform is really going to help so many companies on their journey. It's a remarkable program that you've been able to put together with all of the templates and all the things that you've used throughout the years and continue to contribute. If you're on the Dexy program and you need an expert to talk to, you can talk to them on video. I mean, it's really, really a great idea. And I'm sure it's just going to be helping so many companies. And I'm so proud to interview you now, because I'm sure, even a year or two down the road, you're going to have helped so many companies through Dexy on their journey to greatness. Now, I know you've only sliced out a certain amount of time for me today, Gail, but I wanted to talk just a little bit more about entrepreneurship, because you're an award winner. You know a lot about entrepreneurship. Your personal journey's been absolutely incredible. You love mentoring, you love helping, you love giving back, you love paying it forward. So we're going to have some younger entrepreneurs watching the show that maybe are trying to get to that MVP, and maybe they're hitting a roadblock. Maybe they're hitting a pothole. Maybe they're hitting a wall that they don't know how to get through. Maybe they're freaking out a little bit as an entrepreneur. They don't know whether they can do it. And of course, all entrepreneurs face roadblocks, and it's up to entrepreneurs like us to get through them. But for the younger entrepreneur watching the show, Gail, maybe you could give them some advice on the right mindset that's necessary to get through the roadblocks on your way to greatness.
Wow, that was a big intro to that question. I would say around mindset, you're absolutely right. Mindset is everything. And so there's some amazing books to read that, that you can read. One of my favorites, which is a really old one, but it's the 1 Minute Salesperson. And I love it because it talks about, it's never about selling, it's about service. Everything you're doing is about being of service to your customers. So if you are constantly thinking about how am I serving, that's one thing that will help you. And the second thing is a quote that's our North Star at MercerMacKay, and my personal North Star, and I'm not going to get it quite right, but it's by Zig Ziglar. And he says, you will have everything you want in life if you help everyone else get everything they want in life. And so if you are a young entrepreneur starting out, find out how you can serve everybody that you come in contact with. So for example, if you find an accelerator, and that's a great place to help you get past roadblocks, try to find a local accelerator that you can join, where you can get access to programs and mentors and people and other things. If you can get into an accelerator, find out how you're going to help that accelerator be successful. So it's not about what the accelerator can do for you, it's how you can help them. And then if you get a customer, your first customer that's going to trade testimonials, make sure you really understand how you're going to help that customer be successful, so that you are making sure that you are giving as much as you can. And it's really funny. I was actually talking about this morning before we even got on this call. I said, sometimes I feel very selfish because I know that every time I give, I get so much back. It's phenomenal. It really is a selfish approach, because when you give, you get so much back. And I do notice that there's occasionally, I will run into a younger entrepreneur who is very me, very focused on themselves and what they can get for themselves, and without thinking about how they're going to help the other person. And so mentoring, advocacy, joining programs, getting access to people, it always is a two-way street. So that's my biggest advice for an entrepreneur starting out.
Gail, it's unbelievable. I mean, really, again, if you're watching the show, rewind it to the last answer of Gail's. I mean, not only was that about business, but that was about life. I mean, that was very, very powerful. It's about being a service. It's about not thinking so much about you or your technology or your offering if you're not in the technology business, but really the old-fashioned way, put your customer first and be a service to them. And I had to write it down because I love this quote. I've never heard it said this before, Gail, said this way before, but you feel selfish for giving because you get so much back in return. I mean, you need to write a book about that. I mean, that's like mind altering. That is such a great way to look at life. And I thank you for that personally, because I'm going to start using that. I feel selfish for giving because I get so much more back in return. It's just a great, refreshing sort of way to think about life. And it's so empowering. It really fills the world up with a lot of light, which, can be a dark place sometimes. And it just makes all the sense in the world. Gail, that's awesome. I wanted to take a minute to thank you so much for slicing out some time, for coming on the .com magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight series today. What you're doing at the MercerMacKay digital storytelling company has been remarkable for many, many years. And this new offering, this Dexy that you have, I think is really going to change and shift the shape of the way people tell their stories and move forward in their technology companies in the future, Gail. So thank you so much for coming on the .com magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight series today.
Oh, Andy, thank you for having me. It's just been so lovely to meet you and have the conversations that we've had, and it's culminated in this show today. And I'm so excited. And if you're an entrepreneur out there, if you're thinking about starting your own business, if you're feeling stuck and you're not quite certain what to do, just keep at it. You will be successful. I promise you.